Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
Hello, this is Chris Parker with Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. And Gerphil Kerkhof is an old friend and colleague. We worked together many moons ago at Leaseplan. He was in the enterprise architecture space, and I was oftentimes doing projects. And if you know corporate IT, projects are typically trying to cut corners and do things cheaply and quickly, and architects are trying to protect the future investment and overall costs. So we had lovely conversations. And I've been watching Gerphil over the years move from his corporate architecture into a completely different space. And so it's wonderful to have an opportunity to catch up with him again. Gerphil, would you please introduce yourself and tell people what you're doing now and really why are you doing what you're doing?
Thank you, Chris. I'm 62 years old, and in 2015 I changed quite radically from enterprise architecture into being now a life coach and therapist. I help people to basically rediscover themselves, to go into their inner world, to free themselves from inner conflicts, from things that keep them back, that keeps them from doing what they really want and being who they really are. I apply for that, what we call orientation on being, science-oriëntatie, which is a fusion of Buddhism, secular Buddhism, and Western psychology. That is basically what I do. So I slipped into, or I crashed into a burnout in 2015, and at the same time, actually two months before that, I got the revelation that I should be doing this. And I started also my training as a coach and therapist. And now we are 5 years later.
Wow. How did the revelation, because my thought is, and also with myself, oftentimes I'm so busy with life, particularly when I'm stressed, and I've been at or near burnout myself, to be open to a revelation, I think you have to have some clarity of mind and space. So how did you receive it? How were you available to that?
Well, I was at that moment pretty desperate about my work. I didn't see any future, but I also didn't have any alternative. So I thought of the usual things like starting a camping or a bed and breakfast and stuff like that. But actually, I was completely blank. And I had an appointment with my 3 sons to have a motor weekend in Germany. I don't ride bike. Okay. They do. So I took the car. Yeah. And my wife said, when I said goodbye, well, now you have the time to think about it. So I was crossing the border at Maastricht and going into the northern part of the Ardennes. And then suddenly a thought struck my mind, and it really struck my mind. It felt like everything was suddenly moved in the same direction, as if my complete history of life and all the things that I've done and I've thought, etc., point in one direction. And the thought was to become a spiritual coach. I had no clue what it was, but it sounded wonderful. And I had a basic understanding of what it was. So when I came into I was ecstatic when I got this revelation that I had to do this, to help people to get to the sense of their being.
What did ecstatic feel like? I'm trying to get into that moment with you.
Well, you feel very energized and very happy, and you feel like everything fits together. So it's really in a dream I went on to Germany. And
I'm gonna make that drive tomorrow.
Oh, great!
because it's So it's. But anyways, let's keep going. Talk.
So and I came into the hotel. There were all those bikers, etc. And my one of my sons gave me a call or a WhatsApp or whatever that they had a delay, so I had to wait for another hour. And I was thinking behind such a big glass of beer. Well, it sounds interesting, spiritual coach, but how do you get it? I'm not yet there. So I started to Google spiritual.
Right there in the German biker bar with a big beer. Okay.
Yes, spiritual guide, training or education or whatever. And on the number one, there was the Centrum Zijnsoriëntatie, where I finally got my education. And further stuff that was not interesting. And so I opened this page, what is orientation on being? I said, the first paragraph, yeah, that's me. The second paragraph, that's me. Third paragraph, that's me. I was very happy. I closed my mobile telephone. I ordered the second beer. I said, I'm done. So 2 days later, I came back. My wife said, honey, I know what I'm going to do. I will be a spiritual coach, guide, and I will do this education 4 years to become to do this. And so a few days later, I had paid for it.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And can you explain what spiritual coach means? Because in my experience, the word spiritual and spirituality means a wide range of things to different people.
In the word spiritual, you have spirit, that is that core part of yourself that drives you, that gives you energy, that gives you direction, of which you normally have no idea. You're just living in an automatic way. And you're more living outside of yourself than inside of yourself. I felt this as a calling from my soul. I see now as my reason of existence to help people to reconnect with their soul, so the spirit that drives them, and to really become who they deep inside of them are, and to make it happen in the world, to live it in the world. That is spirituality for me. So it is not something that is somewhere in the sky or in an invisible world. It is something that you feel inside. And my experience too is when I work with people and I work through their difficulties, their pain, their anger, their fears, etc. What typically happens is when they really accept these difficult feelings and the inner conflicts, they get to the deepest ground. So you are willing to let yourself drop, then you fall on your own ground. And there you feel that the same energy, basically, the same lightness and calmness, which I would define as your spirit or your soul or your essence.
Yeah. Well, for me, I have not yet experienced and would love to experience that sort of epiphany and flow and connectedness. My own journey, and ebullient is really part of that, because it feels like a calling. And as I shared with you earlier, I fell into a trap of trying to sell it. And this is not, for me, it's not something to be sold. If people want to buy coaching, that's fine. I've purposely stayed away from the inner self of entrepreneurs. So I'm also delighted you're here and can reference you and recommend you, because I do stay sort of on the intellectual side of a business and the business architecture. However, you can't look at those things, I think, independently, because the business is the human, and the human is the business. And
sure.
And that's also something I've known and believed and continue to discover. So, I feel it. I think also different people have different terms and words for spirituality and self, and you use the word soul. Other people use essence, the universe, they're connected to them, their inner self. And I think all those are all very, very similar. So looking back to your business, and this might be a bit business intellectual, but who are the best customers for you? Meaning, who are you delighted to work with, and maybe who are you less delighted to work with?
And the people I most like to work with are willing to go through the most difficult difficulties in themselves, so their hardest feelings, etc., and are willing to let themselves fall, to accept the disaster, basically.
But what does that mean? That's a spiritual fall, or a mental, emotional fall, or?
Oh, it's just the first instance. It is an emotional fall.
Yeah.
So, for example, when you are in a squeeze between your joy of life and your fear, because as a little girl you were always playful, etc. But at the same time, your parents always told you to be fearful. Then you can be very stagnated in yourself. So every impulse to live is repressed by fear. And that fear you are repressing as well, because living in fear is no fun.
No.
So what I then do is to reconnect both with the joy of life and the joy of taking risks and to be yourself, as well as to jump into that fear and really live in that fear. Because when you, from a free consciousness, you are able to endure the fear disappears. So you need to be willing to do that, because you really want to expand yourself in what we call your free version. And that takes that risk and that pain.
If I was to ask a hypothetical question, it's not hypothetical at all, it's about me. I absolutely feel that there is a inner tension, block, something, but I don't feel fearful. I've also done a lot of self-work. I've been to coaches, counselors. My parents, both of them were divorced 3 times as a kid. And when I talk to some of my, other family members, they're always, Chris, we're amazed at how well you turned out. Okay. This is just normal, and fortunately, because that's all I know, my parents were separated when I was 1. And I think that's much easier for a kid to adapt to, as opposed to if I was like 13. Because I've been part of back in California, a college coach, a divorce recovery workshop through our church at the time. And I saw that the kids who were around the teens that really suffered, from that, as opposed to, because that was more normal for me.
Sure.
But I've done so much self-work, and I've also, really leaned into, I'm more of an art of attraction, Abraham Hicks type person, listening to that sort of positivity, embrace contrast, embrace tension. Through tension and contrast, you can discover what is joyful. Meditation. And for some reason in my head, I believe there is something stuck, but I have no idea what it is, or if it's even there. Maybe it's just in my brain. I don't know. So if you had, Chris walking up to you and saying, "Hey, Gerphil, something feels stuck," or maybe there is a hidden fear. What would that process look like?
What I would do?
Yeah.
Well, the foundation of what I do is to help you to tune into your body. Most people in the Western world are more or less alienated from their body, And the more tensed you are, the less body you have. In the end, you only live here.
Yeah.
So the first thing is to really embody your body. So be able to tune into all your bodily sensations. And if you are tensed, it will show up in your body as pain or cramping or whatever. And if you really open up for those body sensations, things will happen also emotionally. You will get memories, you will get ideas, feelings, etc. And that is usually the way how to move in your inner world, basically. Because otherwise you continue your discussions in your head that you are having already about yourself. It doesn't bring you much new. You can tell it to somebody else and that person would reflect, etc. But it wouldn't bring you fundamentally, it doesn't bring you to a breakthrough. Yeah. Your body will.
Yeah, for me, I'm certainly not there yet. Very intrigued and appreciative of this conversation. But what I have gotten good at is being more in tune to when stressed. My chest can feel tighter. You know what I mean? And I was a number of years ago, almost hardly able to move because of back pain, and I was going actually towards the surgery route, and then someone turned me onto a book from a doctor in New York who basically said back pain is essentially stress, almost completely. And I think for me, once that, once that realization came through, I started working on self and stress and calm. Went to an osteopath and, haven't looked back since. So, interesting. Also for me, maybe it's a bit too mental, but what I've also discovered is to be very in tune to if I'm doing something and if it doesn't feel good, it probably won't end up well. And you're right. I do feel it more in my body. If it's not if I think good. It's more if this isn't feeling good, something won't end up well. And that has been, it's a long journey to be open to feeling those things. So,
yeah.
How about people who are not your best customer?
Now you have people who are a little bit fearful to really go into their feelings and to go into their body. And if they have a way, if they are very verbal and they talk a lot, then it is difficult to get through. Because they will give you more and more and more information. They, in fact, already know, but they are not willing to stop their thinking and talking and listen to what is underneath. That is very difficult because and that is also more me. I'm a person who reacts rather secondary. I'm a listener and I'm a little bit slow and I don't talk too much. If somebody talks a lot, it is for me difficult to say, stop. I really have to provoke people to stop talking, to stop thinking and go into their body. That takes time for me and it costs more energy, basically. So very, very, very mental, cognitive people who talk a lot, that is difficult.
Can you discover that up front? I'm wondering.
Well, it's very apparent.
Okay.
And I still try, and usually we get somewhere, but it is more difficult.
Yeah. I'm curious, and again, this is I try to focus on how you're working on your business as well as what's going on inside your business. But have you done anything? Because your website is somewhere. I was looking at it earlier. Essential Waves. I'll put the website in the show notes so people can find you. Have you done anything with your marketing in order to attract the people who are more open to openness?
Sure.
Maybe to sort of politely nudge the mental people a bit to go somewhere else? How have you built that into your I don't know, your intake or your marketing or?
Well, my branding, my articles really show how I am. So it is very personal. People who like what I am writing like to come to me for coaching, and there is a fit. So what you see there, it is crisp. It is nice photos of myself. So there is a creative nudge there. The logo looks modern. It is nothing to do with Buddhas and things like that. It is crisp. It is earthly. It is there is a lot of emotion, and there is, I admit, quite some text. In my experience, when somebody is really excited about the first paragraphs, they will read the article in full. So what I see is that people spend 6, 7, 8 minutes to read an article, which is pretty long for internet. So most people read 2, 3 paragraphs and then it's over. But in my articles, which I write in particular for people with burnout or ADD, which are my main topics, they will read through and they will come back and read more.
Nice.
So you have people who really are interested and really are willing to do something for it.
It's funny that when I was looking at your website earlier, you're right. Now that I look at it again, there is a lot of text in there, but I didn't actually notice that the first time because it is, it's quite styleful, and then you're right, front and center. And then translating it to English, but you open up with, have you always been called a dreamer? Can you connect that back to, because that, check.
Well,
me, but and then so does connect the. Why do you start there with that as a opening statement, and then translate to? What's the flow of logic there, or emotion, I guess?
Well, that also filters people for people who, for some reason, have the idea, the feeling that they are not fully there yet. Who might have the feeling that they are landed on a strange planet that is not really their home. It also suggests that it is not about fulfilling your dreams. It is about fulfilling who you are as somebody with dreams. So that is also the tagline, to bring out the dreamer in you, not to fulfill your dreams. Your dreams can change, but who you really are as a dreamer, so that you will become awake on earth in your relationship, etc.
Funny. I wish I would have. Of course, you can't know in advance where these conversations go, but I literally have a T-shirt called "I am a being, not a doing." and and it's also part of myself, reminding of. Well, one of the tactics I do is, and this is just, I started this more structurally in the Corona time, but really tried to do a guided meditation. I took a meditation course late last year in order to get out of my head, into my body. And what I really tried to do is it's not perfect every day, and I also forgive myself for being imperfect. But try to meditate first thing in the morning before I check email and before I make my to-do list. Because that way, then through that, I find I'm much more inspired on, I don't know if it's what I should be doing, but it's what I should be doing for myself. So the things, the priorities that maybe the obligations of other people on me are different. But it's like, oh, I'm really inspired to do that and that today. And whenever I follow through that, there's also more joy and the feeling of progress, things happen. So
yeah.
So how about yourself? Coming back to you as an entrepreneur, you mentioned some of your customers sometimes take energy. How do you keep yourself energized and focused and moving forward as a solopreneur, solo business owner?
Well, the first thing that I do after breakfast is meditation. So it allows me to get self-centered, not egoistic, but self-centered, so that I reconnect with myself. And sometimes within that meditation, I get ideas, I get inspiration. So another thing is I not only do then coaching and therapy, I also write articles. That is my way of being creative, think about topics that I believe are essential for myself and for my clients. And that allows me to reconnect every time again with the audience that I have in my heart, basically. Mm-hmm. So I'm constantly in an internal discussion with the people I work for, people who I don't know yet, but I have a feeling of my customers in myself. And writing articles helps me to tune into that. So that is the second important thing.
And that enriches you, or that also energizes you? The
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also my articles are partially driven by my own experience. So I've been in a burnout. I have attention deficit disorder myself. So I know how it is, and I know how I can help myself to bring the best out of myself. So I bring that also into my articles. So it is also a kind of therapeutic for myself. Now, as a therapist, you are constantly also working on yourself. And that is the third thing. Your clients and their issues, where they come to you, they also challenge me in my own personal development. Mm-hmm. So, for example, at this moment, I get quite some clients with relationship issues. So I'm now diving into relationships and sexuality and things like that. And it forces me to also to take another perspective on my own relationship.
Yeah, I hear it completely. And as I shared before we started recording, I do corporate work, but also coaching and filmmaking, and it all has to do with projects and coaching. But I'm always confronted through coaching or mentoring type conversations on what are my preconceived notions, or what are my beliefs? What do I believe that's sacred or true? When actually, there's something right here in front of me proving that there are other options. It's almost that no one has an answer. At least not a definitive answer. And I love that. I love just to and then feel that discomfort. And then sit down and then try to sort out in my brain, why did that feel uncomfortable to me? Yeah. Because those are just words that person was saying with conviction and honesty and respect and trust and love. And wow, that made me feel weird. What is it within me that made me, and that's a nice reflective moment. So it's, outstanding.
I actually like feel that pain, the pain of discovery and discomfort.
Yeah. On the point of enjoying the pain of discovery and discomfort, we need to wrap up. Gerphil, this has been delightful. Thank you for the openness and sharing. How can people find you and your articles in the best way?
Well, through my website, www.essentialwaves.nl.
Yep.
But if you Google on Gerphil Kerkhof, you will also find me.
Yeah. And those all of you that are not fluent in Dutch, you just right-click on Chrome and translate to English, and it works absolutely perfectly. Gerphil, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure for me too. And have success with this.
Learn more at ebillion.com/podcast.